Today now we are going to discuss about the ethical conduct for engineering professionals. So I think most of you all are young graduates from the Sri Lankan universities, maybe abroad also, but in the in, in the sense of accreditation of your engineering degree, all the universities now commence to or start to teach the ethics, engineering ethics during the university life, mainly because of the it is a mandatory requirement for the internationally accredited Washington Accord. Therefore, I think most of you are all are during the university life studied the engineering professional ethics. So, so now if you discuss the importance of the engineering practice of engineering ethics, engineering contribute to the national development or economic development of the country by various means utilizing the expertise in industry worlds in today the in today's world their contribution span wider areas from non-scale non-scale equipment to skyscrapers skyscrapers. Formal engineering knowledge and industrial experience gained over time support them to making decisions. So it is the most important. This formal engineering knowledge and industrial experience gained over time support them in making decisions. Tragic disasters such as Kanna City Hotel, walkway collapse, Bhopal gas strategy, challenge space shuttle explosion, and the collapse of the Rana Plaza building in Bangladesh happened over time, causing the death of many innocent people. In the meantime, I think you may heard during the previous year, about 2 3 years back, I think the Kandy was a major disaster. So therefore, there is a problems. So we made the uh, engineering mistakes. Therefore, the engineer has a great responsibility to protect the public health, safety, and life of the people. So many innocent people, such as farmers and other industrial people, actually, they also, without engineering support, they are losing and reducing their crops, and all those things are there. The technical knowledge is not sufficient to make socially responsible engineering decisions. Engineering ethics guide professional engineers to behave and make engineering decisions ethically. However, the rapid technological development and transfer happen in the world very second, and socio-economic and political constraints prevailing in the working environment act as barriers to the ethical conduct of the technical professionals. I think you can understand earlier regime earlier about few months back. So also now even now also now most of the engineers are influenced by the politicians. So therefore you could not do your job properly. That everybody know that what is happened. So engineers should be motivated to adhere to the engineering ethics within their professional conduct to avoid the uh, reoccurrence of similar tragedies in the present and future society. It is a responsibility of all the stakeholders of the engineering profession, such as, therefore, the universities, engineering professional institutions like IESL, and all are regulatory bodies, and government, and every individual engineer in the society have to follow the engineering ethics. Actually, IESL is regulating your engineering practice according to the engineering conduct has direct and vital impact on the quality of the life for all people. You know, the engineers are involved with the agriculture, industries, transport, and all the sectors. Therefore, engineering conduct has direct and vital impact on the quality of the life of the people. General public therefore expect all members of the profession to exhibit the highest standards of honesty and integrity. It is quite clear that everybody is now even present day discussing the highest standard of honesty and integrity. Accordingly, the services provided by the engineers are require honesty, dependability, impartiality, fairness, and equity. Therefore, they must be dedicated to the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare in all professional acts. They must be dedicated to the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare in all professional acts. So, this is the first principle of the ethics of. Therefore, the engineers they must perform under the standard of professionals behavior that require adherence to the highest principle of the ethical conduct. All the professions, some like engineers, doctors, lawyers, they they are all professions as their own ethical behavior. So it is the mainly the ethical conduct to serve the society of their profession. Like that, engineers also they must perform in the best manner to serve their community or society. So regarding the agriculture, the irrigation sector, for example, so once we are in the agriculture sector, it is a prime objective of our engineers to equitably distribute the available water for development of the what you call this agriculture. So now the water supply engineer. So he has their moral obligation to serve the nation. So all the people to give the purified water without any shortages. So therefore, in the meantime, we have to provide the water for agriculture development, industries, water supply, first priority water supply, then agriculture, then industries. So equitable manner because everything is interrelated and they have to work together to fair to distribute the available water fair and reasonable manner. In the meantime, transport sector also maintaining the roads, maintaining the electricity, maintaining the other facilities, infrastructure, and IT industries, all are actually people expecting fair and equal support from the engineering community, engineering profession. Therefore, we must perform our duties according to the higher our institution, IESL standard ethical manner. So ethical conduct is the highest requirement. All professional engineers, while discharge of their professional duties, shall follow the IESL code of ethics. So this practice of this ethical behavior is actually it is vested with the professionals. So professional institution, vested with the professional institution. So professional institutions are implementing the engineering ethics among the engineers. So IESL, they are maintaining the ethics in their community. That means incorporate engineers. So therefore, it is the most important. In the meantime, this recently established engineering council also having the responsibility. So they also declared 6 important ethical issues, almost similar to ISL code of ethics, basically, mainly because of those who are maybe not the our local engineering graduates or maybe foreign graduates, or their professional qualification are foreign institution. Even though once they come to the Sri Lanka, they have to adhere to the present Sri Lankan code of ethics introduced by the ISL. Therefore, it is a mandated requirement or anybody, any person come to the work in Sri Lanka, first get the approval and this clearance from the Institute of Engineers, and then join the engineering council. Then he is having the license to make the practice. So from everything, what we are expected is to make the discipline among the engineers in the local manner. Ethics and engineering. It is most important for the young engineers, especially ethics. Ethics is an integral part of the professional life, and in particular the life of engineering profession. So life of engineering profession is always open to the any corruption and bad malpractice, everything. Therefore, as a profession, we must protect the profession. Therefore, ethics is actually control the engineer behavior in their day-to-day activities as well as engineering profession. So therefore, all the engineers has to act according to the ethics. So then our profession will be protected. So professional engineer means, as you know, we are continuing our education, has specialist skill and knowledge. Maybe you are civil engineer, building service engineer, electrical engineer, or mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, or any engineer have the specialty, special skill and knowledge in their area. Engineer has acquired such knowledge and skill through a long period of training and study, and continuing to maintain and update them. Your knowledge has to continue and update them through the out the professional life. So when you are doing the your practice in professional life, you have to always update your knowledge. Even the old people also to work in the industry must read all the journals and everything to update the knowledge. Then the people will be accept you and engineering community will accept you. Engineering has as a result of the specialized expertise a significant power to affect individual clients and wider society. So engineers are normally working for the society as well as for individually. So you are providing your service. Therefore, it is very vital that all the engineers has a knowledge throughout their life can develop the professional skills with the new technology like that. Has a engineer has a result of his specialized expertise, significant power to affect individual, client, and wide society. So let me discuss and belong to the professional body IESL, which regulate their practice. Therefore, normally that you are belong to the IESL. So you are member of the IESL, right? With the associate member, corporate member, fellow, you are so. So actually the control of your ethical conduct is and regulate your practice is entrusted with the IESL. So IESL, therefore IESL, is already introduced the 8 ethics, and the time being normally it is revising. So it is so actually when you practice in the field, so you have to adhere to the IESL ethics. That's what we are always trying to educate most of the young engineers in respect of their ethics. And as part of the self-regulation, adhere to ethical principle which the professional body oversees. So then, so when you are doing your job ethically, it is the self-regulation and self-regulation. So before you take a decision, you think twice whether you are doing this according to ISL ethics. This is the most important. So engineering profession. So it's a noble profession. Engineering is an important and learned profession. As members of the profession, engineers are expected to exhibit the highest standard of honesty, integrity. Engineering has a direct and vital impact on the quality of the life for all people. Accordingly, the service provided by the engineer requires honesty, impartiality, fairness, and equity, and must be dedicated to the protection of the life, public health, safety, and welfare. So it is most important. All we are working for the nation or community. So it is public health, safety, and welfare is the most important and trust ethic principle. Engineer must perform under the standard of professional behavior, and that requires adherence to the highest principle of the ethical conduct. So this is the way you have to work as well as when you are in the work in the institution or government department or privately, you have to maintain your ethical behavior. So that's what we are going to discuss about ethical behavior. So now you must understand what is the meaning of professional ethics. Professional ethics are principles that govern the behavior of the person and group in a business environment. So now you may be work in your company and you may be work with the other engineers in the department. So you are a group of business environment. So it is I think quite understood. Therefore, each and every member of this business or business environment has to work in ethical manner. You are self-controlling your professional duty by the ethics. Like values, professional ethics provide tools on how a person should act toward other people and institution to such an environment. So then it is the this what to call it, provide you the rules then how you should uh, act toward the principal and institution such an environment. So within that context, how your behavior should be. So professional ethics encompasses the personal and corporate standard of behavior expected by the professionals such as engineers, doctors, lawyers, accountants, etc. All the professional bodies, professional engineer, professionals having their own ethics, quite similar, but differences are there. So it is the most important thing. Now, for example, regarding the lawyers, lawyers actually there is a ethics. So then, for example, lawyers has to act for any person who come to get his service. So this is it is cab rank rule. That means so the one ethic. That means irrespective of the personal quality, anybody who come to the get his service, he has to provide. Like in England, there is a caps. So then caps are putting in parking in the park for what 1, 2, 3 like that. So then, if anybody comes to get the service, cab service, so he will enter the get into the cab and then run. So then the taxi drivers are not thinking about whether this person is a good person or bad person or like that. So therefore, anybody who wish to take his service, he is provided. So then lawyers also like that. So any person who come to the lawyer to get his service, so whether you like or not, you have to act for his provide the service. Like the engineers also, when you are doing the work, right? So the ethics are controlling your life. So then sometimes you know this, we have our own discipline. So then the society is accepted as your engineer. Then somebody is come and ask from your service. So it you you decide and you can determine whether it is belong to the your specialty, whether it is civil or electrical. So then if it is if suppose you are a civil engineer, then you know that all the civil engineering, then you can do the job, right? Because you can accept the offer from your client. So if it is mechanical, so you must very peaceful manner, uh, without hesitating, must tell that I am not the specialist of the subject. So in the meantime, now for example, now the professional engineer, once you become the corporate engineer, you can, as a civil engineer you can design the buildings. So it is the rules and there. So for public health, safety, health and everything, that UDA and other governing institutions. So if the buildings is more than 3 stories, must be this particular engineer must have, even though he is a corporate engineer, chartered engineer, must have the MSc or structural engineers, member of the structural society. So if you are not the structural society member, but you are corporate chartered engineer, so you can't sign the what to call this, the particular plan, and you can't design. So there are number of court cases. So then they ask, then because of some people, they are thinking that Indian civil engineers uh, they are designing the regarding what you call it ground floor also. With the ground floor, the number of stories may be more than that, four or four. Suppose she is four, then as a chartered engineer, you are only allowed to 3 story building. So then you should not sign those. You should not design. So there are some court cases by UDA and other what to call this town council. If some engineers are signed without the proper qualification, so then you have to face in the consequences in the courts, because you know very recently that you heard about the collapse of the Kennedy building. So those things and people are died. So not, so that is actually the public health, safety, and all those things are discussed. So those things are very important. So professionals and those working in acknowledged profession exercise specialist knowledge and skill. How the use of this knowledge should be governed when providing service to the public can be considered as as a moral issue and issued termed professional ethics. It is capable of making judgment, applying their skill, and taking informed decision in situations that the general public cannot because they have not attained the necessary knowledge and skill. One of the earliest examples of the professional ethics is the Hippocratic oath on the medical doctors will adhere to this date. So now you have the special knowledge, and with that you can do the all the works. For example, irrigation engineer. So then irrigation engineer, he was specialized in the civil engineer and irrigation management. So then regarding the water management, so then anybody can distribute the water. So anybody may think that it is very simple practice, but the water is very essential and very scarce resources. So it is the duty of the irrigation engineer to release the water to the farming community in timely, correct amount of water timely. So in the various stages of the paddy crops, they need water little more, a certain amount. Therefore, as an engineer, you can you can calculate with the knowledge as well as scientific knowledge how much water should be released to the paddy field. So flooding is not not the water management. Therefore, exact amount the paddy's need should be released. So this can be done by the engineer with the specific calculation with their knowledge of uh, canals as well as the agriculture. So you have to make this water management program with your knowledge and experience as well as the scientific manner. So therefore, if the opening the sluice and sending the water downstream, that is not the professional manner. So professional means you have to give the this exact amount of water need for particular crop and to get the maximize the production. So that is the way behind the your practice in the water supply also. Now anybody can put it the pipelines, that is different, but controlling the required amount within the compound, maybe house, maybe the hotel, so like maybe the office. So then lay, how to distribute the water within that compound is the professional life, professional duty. So engineers has to calculate all the things and with the scientific manner, with the experience and identification of the various components. So you have to give the service. In the meantime, from the overhead tank to your compound, the people can give the water. In the meantime, you supply supply your water for your overhead tank is the another duty. So you have to bring the water from the uh, long distance. In the meantime, providing the in between water for the various other consumers. So all those things are professional. So then, your duty is to distribute the water equitable manner to all the consumers. So then, like that. So when you become the chartered engineer and at the induction ceremony, you are reading this professional ethics as a oath. So after that, you will get the certificate. That means throughout your life, you have to follow the ethical conduct according to the your professional body IESL. Then we are going to discuss the fundamental canons. What means generally accepted rules, standard or principles. So each and every engineer must be always keep in this mind these things. So the fulfillment of their professional duties. So always you have to keep in the mind. So then very easy to work without any blame or any corruption or any public hearing, nothing. So first one is I selected only six, very even though seven is there. So the very main this thing, whole paramount safety, health, welfare of the public. So your duty is actually focused to the public. So we are we are ensure as engineers public safety, health and welfare. Even when you design the when you travel in the road by walking or bus, the engineers are designing the roads to safety for the safety of the public and health of well, welfare. So then, that's the reason. So what you call this payments and everything are designed very nice manner to provide the adequate facilities to the pedestrians. So in the bus, when you drive the bus also, we're traveling by bus. So they are also engineers has the what you call duty to provide the safety. In the meantime, transport by train, everything. So everybody is discussing, everybody is attending the safety of health and welfare of the general public. In the meantime, the second one is perform services only areas of their competence. So you have certain knowledge and you have competence. With that, you should work in that area. That means that civil engineer cannot practice mechanical, even though you are mechanical. Even the civil engineers cannot practice the IT in their field without even though you have good knowledge. So then, like that, even electrical, like that. So then, but there are engineers even uh, in the earlier and presently also. Some people are qualified civil as well as IT, as well as civil and mechanical and electrical. So then you have avenues. If you get really interested about the electrical, mechanical engineer can follow the courses and fulfill the requirement of ISL, get the second charter as an electrical engineer. So I know very well that one engineer, originally he was a civil engineer. So then after civil engineer, he has actually studied the IT. He chartered civil engineer IT, and with that IT, so he developed his design, got the charter from passing the prescribed examination for the to become the corporate engineer of the information technology. And now presently, I know he is doing the PhD in Japan because he was so competent enough to get that knowledge. So therefore, he can practice civil as well as the IT, information technology. So with the he is like that persons are there. In the meantime, there are earlier the CCB chairman. He is a mechanical and electrical, mechanical and electrical chartered engineer. So he can practice both. In the meantime, Vimala Surendra. You know the Vimala Surendra is basically this father of the hydropower. Actually, he is the basically civil engineer, right? He studied the Colombo Technical College, the civil engineering, and then when he worked in the Norelli area, so he was very interesting about the hydropower. Therefore, he went to the UK. He went to the UK and entered the Paradise School, Paradise School, and got qualifications of the hydropower. And I think within very short period he completed a course during the school of Faraday electrical. Then he came to Sri Lanka with the double qualification. He is a civil engineer as well as the electrical engineer. So then in the power sector, actually he initiated the most of the things, mainly because of this experience. He has the civil and electrical. So like that, there are people are there, have the qualification in respect to profession, in competence with the civil, mechanical, electrical, like that. The issue of public statement only an objective and truthful manner. So this engineers always has to issue the public statement. If the it is necessary, then it should be objective and truthful manner. So not the in other manner. That means some people are this give this statement without knowledge, unwanted these things. So it is not the way. It should be in its objective and truthful manner. Act for each employer or client as a faithful agent of the trustee. So when you are work in the company, right, or government department, you are the employee of the particular department or company, and so you are the faithful agent and trustee. භාරකරුවෙක් ඒ ආයතනයේ. So then it is your duty uh, to protect your institution also. So you have to work for the employees. Without the employees' knowledge, you must not do anything, and even the client also. So now somebody is coming to you who get the design of his 4-story building. So he's a client, right? So the client, so you have to when you are working designing his building for your client, you are the faithful agent of that particular client. Therefore, when you are doing these things, you have to act in the what to call this professional manner. So sometimes some some engineers are what to call it designing the engineers buildings without thinking about the client position. So then the client, for example, will say that now you have to construct you have already your client is coming to take the do the get the design from your building. So you have to see the site and inspect the site and then test the soils and find the bearing capacity of the foundation, and you must decide how you put the foundation. So these things are very important. Without that knowledge, if you are just put up the building, then your client will be get into the problem. For example, I can say that I come across one building that it is this Colombo normally marshlands also they are. In the meantime, other people also constructing, though you are putting blank wall, all those things are very limited and trying to get the maximum benefit of the your small area. So then this person actually with the design you have he given the contract to the construction of building, and then the building is moving, and then it come to the rooftop level and complete everything. So with that, actually I think what we found is that the foundation conditions are not properly investigated by the client before the design, by the engineer before the design. Therefore, he has just put the foundation, rough foundation, but when he complete the when he do the tiling, so he put it the tiles in top of the one building. So then he he saw the next door person also complained to him that his toilets and nothings are now moving with his building. So then it is a settlement. So when we inspect the building, so we found that settlement. So that is mainly because of the foundation failure. So then again another engineer as engineers, we give the what to call this remedial measures to rectify that settlement. So it is another cost. So even when we enter his compound, this what to call this. He is not actually invited us to inspect, but his one of his brother-in-law. He is our this head of the department. He actually invited us to see what is happening. So then when we go there he was even he came to blackguard us. So all the engineers are coming and advising, but I am in trouble. So then we carefully, without any making any problem with him, we carefully studied these uh, plans and site conditions and everything, and then we investigation next this investigated the soil found conditions of the his next other adjoining land. Then we found that the very poor foundations are there. Therefore, then ultimately we are the alternative putting the what to call it piles from up to the um, up to the ground rock level, about 30 feet we have to do that, and give the solution to stop the further settlements, removing all the tiles immediately, and we within very short period we tried, and we done the job, and then we observed what is happening for the further settlement, but it was quite successful. So he was happy. So that is the way the professional engineer has to work. So in the meantime, avoid the deceptive acts. Deceptive, you don't like that, you should not do that. Then they conduct themselves honorably, quite understandable, honorably and responsibility, ethically and lawful as to the enhance the honor, reputation and usefulness of the profession. Actually, when you work for the other institution or other person, it is the duty to get the respect from the other parties. So then rules of practice. So basically rules of practice are normally very interesting. Engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, welfare and public. The first one, if the engineer judgment is overruled under the circumstance that endanger life or property, they shall notify their employer or client and such other authority as may be appropriate. Engineers shall approve only those engineering documents that are in the conformity with the applicable standards. Then the engineer shall not reveal facts, data and information without the prior consent of the client or employer except in authorized so required by law as this code. Engineers shall not permit to use their name and associate in business venture with any person or firm that they believe is engaged in a fraudulent or dishonest enterprise. Engineers shall not aid or abet the lawful practice of engineering by the person or firm. Engineers have knowledge of any alleged violation of this code shall report thereupon to their own or to appropriate professional bodies, and when relevant also to public authorities to and cooperate with the proper authorities in furnishing such information and assistance as may be required. So this is that is the way. So now, for example, even we come across so many things, especially water sector. I am the experience. Some people, some engineers are design the hydropower. So then sometimes they are not hydrological analysis done properly. So then, what to call this? Reservoir, small reservoirs constructed without the proper studies of hydrology during the impounding, the surrounding villages are going under water. So then those then those things are actually professional mistakes, and so it's damage to the profession. So I think you may heard in the radio and Rupani, they are criticizing the practice of the engineers. In the meantime, now you know these water resources are very it is not a one man property, it is a general public. So sometimes if you collect all the water, these other people, those who are cultivating around that, surrounding the particular river, is not getting the water. So you are diverting water for your this thing. So those things has to be considered. So you should not make any damage to the people. So those people and those who are enjoying the water, like that. So therefore, this is actually even a public roads also. You can see the if the engineer made the mistakes, the people are suffering. So those things are very important. So therefore, actually, you have to uh, work in always with a systematic manner, considering the always the public. So then the safety, health and welfare of the public is very important. So then you know this sometimes when you are constructed, there are a number of court cases. You can see that in the you are when you read the papers, you will see that injunction orders for the certain people because they are actually working with the engineers designing, obstructing their roads and other and various manner their the safety as a public. So then these things are very important. So day-to-day life you can see the examples how engineers should act for that to maintain the public health and welfare of the society. So this is very important. Now, second, the engineers shall perform services only in the areas of their competence. So, engineers shall undertake assignment only when qualified by education or experience in the specific technical field involved. Then the B second next one is engineers shall not affix their signature to any plans or documents dealing with subject matter. So now you must understand what is the meaning of professional ethics. Professional ethics are principles that govern the behavior of the person and group in a business environment. So now you may be work in your company and you may be work with the other engineers in the department. So you are a group of business environment. So it is I think quite understood. Therefore, each and every member of this business or business environment has to work in ethical manner. You are self-controlling your professional duty with by the ethics. Like values, professional ethics provide tools on how a person should act toward other people and institution to such an environment. So then it is the this what to call it provide you the rules then how you should uh, act toward the principal and institution such an environment. So within that context, how your behavior should be. So professional ethics encompasses the personal and corporate standard of behavior expected by the professionals such as engineers, doctors, lawyers, accountants, etc. All the professional bodies, professional engineer, professionals having their own ethics, quite similar, but differences are there. So it is the most important thing. Now, for example, regarding the lawyers. Lawyers actually there is a ethics. So then, for example, lawyers has to act for any person who come to get his service. So this is it is cab rank rule. That means so the one ethic. That means irrespective of the personal quality, anybody who come to the get his service, he has to provide. Like in England, there is a cabs. So then cabs are putting in parking in the park for what 1, 2, 3, 2 like that. So then, if anybody comes to get the service, cab service, so he will enter the get into the cab and then run. So then the taxi drivers are not thinking about whether this person is a good person or bad person or like that. So therefore, anybody who wish to take his service, he is provided. So then lawyers also like that. So any person who come to the lawyer to get his service, so whether you like or not, you have to act for his provide the service. Like the engineers also, when you are doing the work, right? So the ethics are controlling your life. So then sometimes you know this, we have our own discipline. So then the society is accepted as your engineer. Then somebody is come and ask from your service. So it you you decide and you can determine whether it is belong to the your specialty, whether it is civil or electrical. So then if it is if suppose you are a civil engineer, then you know that all the civil engineering, then you can do the job, right? Because you can accept the offer from your client. So if it is mechanical, so you must very peaceful manner, uh, without hesitating, must tell that I am not the specialist of the subject. So in the meantime, now for example, now the professional engineer, once you become the corporate engineer, you can, as a civil engineer you can design the buildings. So it is the rules and there. So for public health, safety, health and everything, that UDA and other governing institutions. So if the buildings is more than three, then uh, engineers shall act for each employee or client as faithful agent or trustee. So when you are working the employer or project company, or then you are the faithful agent or trustee of that particular company. When you attach to department, you are the trustee of your department. So in the project also same. So when you work in the project, you are the faithful agent of that project. Therefore, now it is very essential that engineers shall disclose all unknown or all known no potential conflict of interest that could influence or appear influence their judgment of the quality of their service. So shall disclose all known or potential conflicts of interest that could be influenced or appear to influence their judgment of the quality of the service. So quite understand, engineer cannot knowledgeable person and professional person, and so when he understand with his qualification as a experience, if your project is not going to be worthwhile or it is not if there is a potential conflict of interest of your project, I think quality of the service you have to disclose that to your client, because you are working for that particular agency, so you are the uh, trustee, one of the member of your company. Engineers shall not accept compensation financial or otherwise, for more than one party for service on the same project. So I quite understand now if you are working on a one project, so you can't you can't work in the another section of that particular this thing to get the more extra benefit. So you have to confine to your company, not for the various people, unless without if you are now you as a private doing the private practice, when you are working in the department, you can do the private practice, design of the building or something for outside party, with as you as a civil engineer or electrical engineer mechanically, but you should not sell the the designs you have done in your company like that for service pertaining to the same project. So, unless the circumstance, engineers shall not solicit or accept financial or other valuable contribution directly or indirectly from outside the agent in connection with the works for which they are responsible. So, that is, I think, not necessary to elaborate. This is you know the day-to-day life. These people are trying to for the avoid what you call close what you call not to disclose the quality of the bad quality. So they are trying to indirectly or directly make them valuable concern. I think everybody know that I don't want to deliberate. So these things are actually we have to be very careful. Engaging in public service as members, advisors or employees of the government or quasi-government body, semi-government or department shall not participate in decision with the respect of services solicited or provided by them or their organization to private or public engineering practice. So when you are working in the government department, you should not work for the private or public parties. Therefore, that means when you are in the government or semi-government or any company, if you work for the other parties, this is a quite different situation. So I know that nowadays there is a what to call this. Most of the projects are coming with the design built project as a design build project. So engineers have in the most of the uh, instances now develop on the roads. So actually when it is entrusted to private parties will be by contract, so they have responsible for do the surveying and do the designs and then construction. So then when they design the road after proper investigation, so he has to get the approval from the respective authority to implement in the field. So sometimes if there is a design is not up to the standard, so then you have to point out the what is the design you are not accepting and then allow them to make it corrections. So sometimes this most of the private parties are just recruiting the less experienced people. Therefore, they are finding the difficulties to produce the quality report and quality designs. So, in which case, sometimes this what you call this, private parties they are influenced by some other way and asking you to undertake the privately this design. They will make payment for you for that. So then it is actually it is not ethically valid because I can tell that during the uh, last year this professional ethics question number 2 I think we asked about the about clause 6, so that is the uh, I think you can remember. So clause 6 is the corruption, bribery and all those things. So there are when we requested to sign answer with your experience. So therefore most of the engineers, young engineers are they are actually point out those things also that actually they point out actually some mistakes and some malpractices. So those things we have to be avoid. Then engineering shall not solicit accept contract from the government body on which principal of their organization serve as a member. So same thing, engineer shall not solicit or accept a contract from a government body on which a principal or officer of their organization serve as a member. So now it is quite clear now when in present context where most of the engineers are taking blame mainly because of the general public said that it is this engineer this work is more contracting by the family members of the particular engineer or like that. So then we should not do the private contracts during when you are working. So in the meantime, uh, engineers shall avoid the deceptive parts acts. So අකමැති දේ නොකළ යුතුයි කියන එක තමයි මම කියන්නේ. හරිද? Engineers shall not falsify their qualification or permit misrepresentation of their on their or the associate qualification. They shall not misrepresent or exaggerate their responsibility in or for the subject matter or prior assignment, approaches or other presentation in incidents to the solicitation of employment shall not uh, misrepresent pertinent facts concerning employers, employees, associate, joint ventures or past accomplishment. Engineers shall not offer, give or solicit or receive their directly or indirectly any contribution, as I mentioned earlier, or the contract by the public authority. So for which may be reasonably construed by the public as having the effect of intent of influence the awarding of the contract. So they shall not offer any gift or other valuable consideration in order to secure work. They shall not pay a commission, percentage or brokerage fee in order to secure the work, except to a bona fide employees or other bona fide established commercial or marketing agencies retained by them. So now that's what this government is introduced the national procurement guidelines. It is included everything very properly. Therefore, if you follow the procurement guidelines in the government sector, if you are so you will not get into any problem. And in the meantime, it is a very transparency manner you have to work. Even private sector also, it is very transparency manner. You have to submit your bids and everything. So this is there are rooms to practice the malpractices during the procurement period. Therefore, to avoid those things, engineers has ethical obligations not to do such things. Then we are going to think about the professional obligations. Engineers shall be guided in all their relations by the highest standard of the honesty and integrity. So any high honesty and integrity, it is not only for the engineering, even for the lawyers, accountants, everybody, it is a common highest standard of honesty and integrity. So especially engineers shall acknowledge their errors and shall not distort or alter these facts. So if there is a genuine mistakes or error, you have to accept and correct it. Engineers shall advise their client or employee when they believe a project will not be successful. So as an engineer, so if sometimes you may come across a project. So after investigation, if you feel that the project is not feasible, so you must not hesitate and you must tell your client this is not the viable project. So it is your duty as a professional engineer. So sometimes to satisfy your engineer, what to call this one, employee, you must not give the false guarantee. So you always must tell the truth to your employee or your company. Engineers shall not accept outside employment to determine of their regular works or interests. Before accepting any outside engineering employment, they will notify their employees. So, you have to understand, right? So, if you are going to outside making any work in the outside your normal duty, you must inform. So this government sector, there is a circular also, I think now also it is there. If you are doing the private practice with the what you call this, um, what you call this, with the permission of your department, you can do the private practice, and from that income, 25% for must be given to the government. So this actually purely this private practice not relevant to the job entrusted you in your department. So there is a most things, because sometimes this you may be the structural engineer, you are very very what to call this, very expert of the structural engineering. So then if you do the design for the some outside parties, that means private party, to be structural design for their building, so you can do it, but with the permission of the your parent department. The engineer shall not attempt to attack an engineer from another employer by false or misleading uh, pretense. So you quite understand, the engineer shall not attempt to attack an engineer from another employer or by false or misleading pretenses, right? So now actually if there is a things is there, so you can very acceptable manner you can explain to the other parties. Engineers shall not promote their own interests in the expense of dignity of integrity of the profession. So it is very quite clear that we have to protect our dignity, integrity and dignity of the profession. Engineers shall treat all personnel with dignity, respect, fairness and without discrimination. So then when you are practicing, it is most important is that your behavior. So you have to perform your job with the dignity and respect, fairness and without discrimination. So without discrimination you have to do that, because some people are human behavior very quite different. So now, but you have to be very careful and you have to be example for the others as a professional engineer. Now, second, the engineers shall perform services only in the areas of their competence. So engineers shall undertake assignment only when qualified by education or experience in the specific technical field involved. In the next one is engineers shall not affix their signature to any plans or documents dealing with subject matter in which they lack competence, not nor in any plan or document not prepared under their direction or control. Engineer may accept assignment and assume responsibility for conditions of an entire project and sign and seal the engineering document for the entire project, provided that each technical segment is signed and sealed only by the qualified engineers who prepared the segment. Now nowadays I think most of the engineers have the various experience in various disciplines and qualification. Or some engineers are having the large experience in environmental matters, some having the hydraulics matters, some having the hydrology. Like then some engineers having the experts of the procurements and contract management. Like that, their own field, because the civil engineering is very vastly developed in the some engineers water management, like that. So therefore, this actually now, for example, now now sometimes we have to work in the projects. So then you may be the expert of the water management, but you are not expert of the environment management. Therefore, actually, what the thing is that now you should not go to the environment management section unless you have sufficient qualification. That means sometimes you should have the masters in the environmental science or special training or something. Otherwise, this your what to call this your produce uh, assignment or report will be not accepted by the other parties. So that is the thing that if you are too confident about this area and have the accepted qualification, you can practice. In the meantime, some engineers are not this what to call this qualified in the building services engineers. Building services is quite different, and recently it is updated and quite different from the civil engineers. Some civil engineers also become the building service engineers, and some electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, because anybody can come into the building services with the proper qualifications as well as experience. Therefore, now since you are the civil engineer, you can't engineers shall avoid all conduct or practice that diseases the people, public. The, the engineer shall avoid all conduct or practice that deceives the public. Engineers shall avoid the use of statement containing a material misrepresentation of fact or omitting the material facts. Consistent with the foregoing, engineer may advertise for the recruitment of a personnel. Consistent with the foregoing, engineers may prepare articles for the lay of technical press, but such articles shall not imply credit to their author for the work performed by the others. So now you know this engineering publications are there. So with the various publication you can get the sufficient knowledge for perform your job. So then when you use the those things, articles and journal articles and from the book, so for your work, so you have to mention in your work that it is you are referred to particular matter from that particular book or particular article or like that. So therefore it is your duty to mention that when you are copied anything, right, from the copied anything, it is you have to mention in your uh, engineers shall not disclose what the shall not disclose. Engineers shall not disclose without consent confidential information concerning the business affairs or technical process of any present or former client or employee or public body on which they serve. So, engineers shall not, without the consent of all interested parties, promote or arrange new employment or practice in connection with the specific project for which the engineer has gained particular and specialized knowledge. Engineers shall not, without the consent of all interested parties, participate in or represent any adversary interest in connection with the specific project or proceeding in which the engineer has gained particular specialized knowledge on behalf of the former client or employee. So these things are actually pertaining to the though in the industry sometimes this you know this some government institution somebody some engineers can get the more competent about the project work and designs and everything. So then after that you know this after getting all the sufficient competence from the government department, you may join the private parties. So when you join the private parties, you should not take the all the data and other whatever you are things you have collected from the your parent principal parent institution, that maybe the government department. So then those things should be should not misuse. In the meantime, now with the your relationship with the colleagues in the parent department or earlier workplace, you should not take all the details and put it to your private company. So these things are sometimes happening. So most of the people are, before leave the particular institution, collect all the details and relevant reports and most interesting things are they are taking from that department and then misuse in the outside private parties. So I think I can remember one engineer is a general manager of the particular corporation. He said that they trained the young engineer and he worked in their corporation for a long time and then he joined the private parties. So then after that he said that most of the his what to call this their bids are always rejected by the implementing agency, mainly because of that the particular private company they are actually mainly the with the bids submitted by the particular corporation. So then what is happening is that he is having the connection with the parties in the his original corporation, and with them he is getting all the information, even the billing documents details, and then according to that he will prepare in his document for the particular bid. So then if it is happened one or two times, then uh, after that the head of the general manager, he understand that is what is happening, and then what he done us. So before submit their bid, he took the bid to his hand and worked in the night with the very close people, obedient people in his corporation, and completely changed the bidding process, because rates and everything he checked personally and changed everything. So then they submit the bid. Nobody knows what is the bid submitted for the bidding process. So normally when you are preparing the bidding document, so it is a collective effort now, where all the people are get together and work to prepare that. So then at that time, so even without the general manager and other his obedient people, nobody knows what is the content included in the bid. So that time then they successful. So they understand that this is the manner that particular engineer who worked with them for a long time and have the still connection with the employees of the corporation, and getting all the details, special rates and other things, and bidding strategies, everything he is choosing for private company work. So that is actually we should not do such things. This is not it. So engineers shall not influence. Engineers shall not influence their professional duties by conflicting interests. So I think not necessarily elaborate. Engineers shall not accept financial or other consideration, including free engineering designs from material or equipment suppliers for the specifying the project. So when you especially when in the procurement process of the supply of machineries, these things are coming because tailor-made specifications are preparing. So then some favorable companies will get that. So engineers shall not accept commission or allowances, directly or indirectly, from contractors or other parties dealing with client or employer of the engineering connection with work for with their engineering responsible. So it is quite to understand, not necessary to elaborate, because day to day we are engineers are blaming for that. Uh, Engineers shall not attempt to uh, obtain employment or advancement or professional engagement by untruthfully criticizing the other engineers or by other improper or questionable methods. So sometimes people are arguing that if the another engineers their work criticizing, especially in the various sector. It is normally, I think you may also maybe what to call this, experience these things. So therefore these things has to be avoided. Any shall not request, propose or accept a commission or contingent basis under circumstances in which their judgment may be compromised. Engineers in salaried position, so we are paid by salary, and shall not accept part-time engineer work only in the extent consistent with the policies of the employer and accordance with the ethical consideration. So then we are working for the particular company. Then with that, so sometimes this sometimes these companies are sometimes as I mentioned earlier, this thing design build contract. So then the outside parties are trying to get the inside engineer support for their design works. So those things is not ethically ethically valid. So it is ethics violated. Engineers shall not without consent use equipment, supplies, laboratory or office facilities of an employer to carry out outside private practice. So not necessary to elaborate, it is there. So we have to be very careful when you do the testing for the private parties. Engineers shall not attempt to injure maliciously, falsely, directly or indirectly the professional reputations, prospects, practice of employment or other engineers. So I think not necessary, because sometimes you may this sometimes this what to call this, engineers are asking the recommendation, all those things from the other engineers, senior engineers. Then you should be act very carefully. Engineers who believe others are guilty or unethical or illegal practice shall present such information to the proper authority for the action. So then, if something is making the wrong thing, that those things, if the people are violating the exist, there is a proper authority. What is the proper authority? IESL. So actually, it's a duty of the IESL to conduct the proper ethical conduct. Therefore, if the engineer is making the mistakes or purposely doing violating the ethics, he has to go to the notice of the IESL. Then they will take the investigate it and take the disciplinary action. Disciplinary action means sometimes you maybe lose your professional qualification for 5 years, 10 years, like that. It is the discretion of the IESL. Engineers in governmental, industrial and educational employee are entitled to review and evaluate the works of other engineers when so required by their employment duties. As I mentioned, that principal agency, his implementing agency, has to scrutinize the design work done by the outside parties according to the contract. So engineers in sales or industrial employee are entitled to make engineering comparison or represented product with product of other suppliers. So now as I mentioned, that regarding the purchase of the machineries for the government services, right, for private sector. So then sometimes some officers are making tailor-made specification to earmark the particular machine. So then other parties are actually they are losing their strength to competitive submitting the bids. Therefore, you have to be very careful in that section. Engineers shall accept personal responsibility. Engineers shall accept personal responsibility for their professional activities, provided, however, the engineers may seek indemnification for services arising out of their practice for other than the gross negligence, where the engineer's interest cannot otherwise be protected. Engineers shall conform with state legislation laws in the practice of engineering. So engineers shall not use association with a non-engineer, cooperation or partnership as a cloak for unethical act. So it is not necessary to further uh, elaborate. The non-engineer means you know this these days. So when you read the papers, you will find out a lot of stories. So then this talk unethical වැරදි වැඩක් කරන්නේ අර කෝට්ටයක් වගේ පාවිච්චි කරන්න හොඳ නැහැ. ඒකින්ද මේ you have to be very careful when you practice in the industry. So engineers shall give credit. Engineers shall give credit for engineering works to those who to work credit due and will recognize the proprietary interest of the others. So we have to always appreciate the others' work if it is good works, and if there is a mistakes, we have to very carefully explain and rectify it. Engineers shall, whenever possible, name the person or persons who may be individually responsible for designs, inventions, writing, or other accomplishment. So designs actually, there are cages. It is itself who is the design, who is checked, and who is submit, who is the approved, and everything is there. Right, like that. Inventions also like that. Writings also like that. So therefore, this must give the due credit to the particular person. Engineers using that means that now you should not publish your subordinates or your subordinates work as papers to get the credits. So you can publish with them. So most of the this what you call educated persons, they are getting full support from their subordinates to train them and publish the journal articles and all those things with their names. Engineers, before undertaking the work for others in connection with the engineer, may make improvements, plans, designs, inventions, or other records that may justify copyright, patent, should enter into the positive agreement or regarding the ownership. So especially in the new areas of the engineering, people, new inventions are there. Therefore, we have to mention that new invention, patent rights and everything should be due to the due persons. Engineers designs data, records and notes referring to exclusively to employee work as the employee's property. So the employer should indemnify engineer for use of their information for any purpose other than the original purpose. So this the information, all those things when you are taking for outside, so due compensation should be go to the those who have owned all the detail. Now, I think everybody will know, all the engineers. As engineers, we know that during the things right is an essential requirement of many professionals, including the engineers, doctors, and lawyers, as accountant, everybody. Ethics guided professionals to achieve achieve that. So everything doing the things right is the most essential requirement of professionals. The engineering ethics, which is supposed to be abided by the professional engineers, right, has become the sensitive topic in the industry with rapid globalization. Today, engineers confront numerous ethical issues in the fast-moving world with rapid, which is never before. So, however, it is not an excuse to work unethically. Engineers' ethics should be promoted among engineers, and in such situation, this engineering council also playing major role. So earlier we don't have engineering council. So ISL is the only body. Then there are many foreign qualified people, educated people coming and practicing in Sri Lanka without any registration. So therefore, this IESL come forward and make the request to the government to establish the Engineering Council of Sri Lanka. So about 2-3 years back, 2017, we established the Engineering Council in Sri Lanka. The actually Engineering Council has a lot of responsibility. Uphold the highest standard of professional conduct, including honesty, integrity, fairness, reliability, and trustworthy. So they have also introduced the ethics, maybe 5 to 6 ethics. Hold paramount of safety, health, and welfare of the public and act with concern to minimize adverse effect on the environment in application of engineering and technical solutions. Perform professional services only in the areas of their competence while accepting responsibility of their professional advice, decisions and activities. Same thing as ISL. Avoid all conduct of practices that deceives the public or their employer and not be influenced in their professional discharge of duties by conflict of interest. As we discussed earlier, not attempt to damage, criticize maliciously or falsely, directly or indirectly, the professional reputation, prospects, practice or employment or other engineering professionals. Give credit for the professional work to whom credit is due and recognize their proprietary interest of the others. Issue public statement, professional report or testimony, prakashana, only in the objective and truthful manner. Include all the relevant and pertinent information in such report, statement or testimony. So then IESL, Engineering Council of Sri Lanka, also declared few ethics similar to the IESL. So therefore, now you know, after Engineering Council of Sri Lanka established, that any engineer who has to practice in Sri Lanka must get the registration in the council. So before that, they must come to the IESL and get its membership and then apply to work in the industry. So engineering councils will play major role in this regard. Engineers shall not attempt to obtain employment or advancement or professional engagement by untruthfully criticizing the other engineers or by other improper or questionable methods. So sometimes people are arguing that if the another engineers their works they are criticizing, especially in the various sectors. It is normally, I think you may also maybe what to call this, experience these things. So therefore these things has to be avoided. Any shall not request, propose or accept a commission or contingent basis. So engineering ethics and ethical violation. So senior engineers and junior engineers we have think about that also. The professional engineer should have balanced knowledge on both technical matters as well as engineering ethics. Engineers who work neglecting ethics create additional problem to society. There are a lot of examples of engineering works related to strategies happened as a result of the neglecting engineering ethics by engineers in their decision making process. Hyatt Regency Hotel walkway collapse, Union Carbide accident in Bhopal are most suitable example. So when the engineers are making violation of rules and ethical rules, so sometimes it will be very bad effect to safety and the public, general public. Therefore, young graduates should practice starting from the beginning period to behave ethically and make ethical decisions in their professional practice. That's what IESL has established, that any engineer who is an prescribed experience, 48 months in the industry, can apply for the become the chartered engineer, passing the prescribed examination. First B paper and then A paper after professional review examination and professional review viva also. The engineering knowledge is not sufficient to improve the welfare of the society by their engineering works. So, therefore, engineers should incorporate those ethical concepts in their lives. So, our behavior also must be example to others' ethical behavior. Engineers should have developed their skills to identify and resolve moral problems associated with the professional works. So, always we have to the, the ISL Code of Ethics actually describe everything, including this thing. Recent research paper revealed that out of 8 ethical clauses in the ISL, 50% of the senior engineers are violating clause number 1. Engineers shall hold paramount health, safety, welfare of the public and proper utilization of the funds and other resources. So this is done by some researchers using the university lecturers, using the students. Now you know this as a accreditation of the degree. The universities has to also teach their engineering student ethics. Nowadays, the subject is not there, but now engineering ethics are teaching for the universities for accreditation. Therefore, engineering students also getting the knowledge during their university about the ethics. Then this particular engineers, those who are went for the industrial training, with that this survey was carried out. So according to their feelings, how our seniors are, whether our seniors are violating the ethical rules. So then it is found that about 50% senior engineers are violating the clause number 1. That means engineers shall hold paramount health, safety, welfare of the public and proper utilization of funds and other resources, especially proper utilization of funds and other resources. So that is the way. Then further, about 30% of engineers not continuing their professional development and shall actively assist and encourage engineers under their direction to advance their knowledge and experience. So it is a duty of the senior engineers to guide the young engineers for their professional development. So it is not happening. That's what 30% of people are not doing it. In the about 13% of engineers, clause number 6, shall apply their skill and knowledge in the interest of their employer or client for whom shall act in the professional matter, etc. Clause number 6 is, corruption and all those things are there. So this is the 13% of engineers, because it is the understanding of those who are working as in plant training engineers in the various institutions. So they go to their knowledge, they understand that this 6 is violating. About 5% of engineers violate clause number 2. Engineers have always acted in such a manner as to uphold and enhance the honor, and uphold and enhance the honor, etc. So this is 5% people are violating according to their findings. Actually, this is the survey. Some senior engineers are responsible for most identical ethical violations. So, most of the senior engineers are responsible for most identical ethical violations. I think I don't want to further elaborate, but I think as young engineers, you will understand when you read the ISL ethics and the incidents take place in your institutions. So then you can understand how we are going to violate the engineering. Now, I think everybody will know, all the engineers, as engineers we know that during the things right is an essential requirement of many professionals, including the engineers, doctors and lawyers, as accountant, everybody. Ethics guided professionals to achieve achieve that. So everything during the things right is the most essential requirement of professionals. The engineering ethics, which is supposed to be abided by the professional engineers, right? Has become the sensitive topic in the industry with rapid globalization. Today, engineers confront numerous ethical issues in the fast-moving world with rapid, which is never before. So, however, it is not an excuse to work unethically. Engineers' ethics should be promoted among engineers, and in such situation, this engineering council also playing major role. So earlier we don't have engineering council. So IESL is the only body. Then there are so many foreign qualified people, educated people coming and practicing in Sri Lanka without any registration. So therefore, this IESL come forward and make the request to the government. So in some places, assign the mechanical work to civil engineers with extra payment, while young ME are available in the house. So, but here I think most of you are you know those things. Some places young engineers have alternative novel proposals for burning issues, but not given time to even to listen to him and press to implement his or subordinate proposal. So actually young engineers are much clever than us sometimes. They have the good new technology. With that they can sort out the problem. Therefore we must always listen to the young engineers and try to allow them to implement their proposals also. Especially I know that in respect of my sector, the water sector, that most of the young engineers are very good water managers. So they are systematically prepare the programs to give the adequate water at correct time to the crops. So therefore, we must they know technology. So with the data, actually they using the modern equipment, programs and computers, they will develop the water management program according to that. Therefore, in which sometimes we for those people, we have to encourage and give the support to develop those new technology, bring new programs and bring the new technology to our industry. So, engineering ethics and ethical violation. So, senior engineers and junior engineers we have think about that also. The professional engineer should have balanced knowledge on both technical matters as well as engineering ethics. Engineers who work neglecting ethics create additional problem to society. There are a lot of examples of engineering works related to strategies happened as a result of the neglecting engineering ethics by engineers in the decision making process. Hyatt Regency Hotel walkway collapse, Union Carbide accident in Bhopal are most suitable example. So when the engineers are making violation of rules and ethical rules, so sometimes it will be very bad effect to safety and As a conclusion, what I said that engineering shall hold paramount health, safety and welfare of the public and proper utilization of funds for other resources. And engineers shall continue their professional development and shall actively assist and encourage engineers under their directions to advance their knowledge, experience are two clauses of the Code of Ethics. ISL predominantly followed by senior engineers and other responsible agencies. So it is most important IES trying to implement all the things. So you have to be very carefully not to allow to violate the ISL rules of uh, engineers shall not disclose what the shall not disclose. Engineers shall not disclose without consent confidential information concerning the business affairs or technical process of any present or former client or employer or public body on which they serve. So, engineers shall not, without the consent of all interested parties, promote or arrange new employment or practice in connection with the. So finally, what I would tell that one of the intention of the framing IS statistic is to give some impression of the range and complexity of ethical issues faced by the engineers. All eight ethics are interconnected. Engineering is broad discipline and that the case studies cannot encompass all the official issues that an engineer might face. Engineers are invited to take more active role in the ethical life of the profession. That is the reason professional ethics are practicing through the professional bodies of such as engineer ISL, irrespective of the whether senior engineer or junior engineer, everybody have to practice that according to that. Ethics is not set of rules that can be learned and take granted, not is it simple framework that can be applied to problems to make them disappear. Engaging with ethical question is difficult, ongoing process that require awareness, reasoning of skill, imagination, and the ability to scrutinize and available your opinion as well as those of others. It is set out skills, abilities, and character traits that can be developed by practice. So therefore, the engineer ethical practice is actually coming with you always. So when you are doing develop your practice, you will be learn you will be get to use the ethics for your career development. This development is not necessary, however, it is rewarding in engineering and confidence building. So with this ethical behavior with the profession, it is rewarding you and enlightening your confidence building. So as a engineer in this industry, you can very successfully practice if you follow the IESL ethics. Thank you very much.